The jump scares when you are caught in Slenderman are sudden at first due to that loud audio cue, which then continues with the flashing face on the screen and that infamous static sound effect. It's a nice blend of shock and eerie. A powerful jump scare when you don't expect it, but quickly subsides after the game has been played a few times, as with most horror games. For this reason, I give jump scares a 6.8. The atmosphere of this game has always been fantastic and a real revolutionary moment for the indie horror game community. Being alone in the woods has always been a scary subject and is used in countless horror movies and stories, which I think is a feeling that is captivated really well in this game. To accompany the environment, the backing music and sound effects are a highlight of this game, with a thumping drone almost equaling that of a heartbeat. 8.2 for atmosphere. The moments leading up to a jump scare or an attack are great at making the player feel hopeless. The way an enemy in the dark, who you never see actually moving, is able to catch up to you and hunt you down is a really terrifying experience. And when the static starts to show on the screen, you already know it's too late. Tension gets an 8.7. A simple game with a simple mechanic is most of the time effective for horror games. Collect the pages and don't get caught. But the more pages you collect, the more hostile Slenderman becomes. A more complex game can sometimes lead to confusion and frustration, so I like that it's relatively easy to play. However, this would be the start of a huge influx of games using the same mechanic. For this reason only, I give it a 7.0. Nothing too special about the visuals, as they are mostly old Unity assets set in the dark. At least the static on the screen was memorable. 4.1. There are few horror game villains as memorable and famous as Slenderman. A big part of what made this story in the games that followed so successful was his unique and yet simple design. The black suit, the tall body, and the faceless enemy who watches you without eyes. Although I personally don't find his design horrifically terrifying, there is little doubt that he is one of the most influential horror characters of all time. And so I'm gonna have to give it an 8.9. Obviously this game is well known for its jump scares. In fact, it may be its biggest selling point besides its complex storyline. They are so powerful and yet so unexpected, but they don't last. As many of you might know, this game is difficult, and the player will have to experience them over and over again. After the initial shock, the game becomes predictable, and you find jump scares to be your everyday death screen instead of a real scare. Definitely more powerful than Slenderman, but I'm gonna have to give it a 7.2. For the first game at least, the atmosphere was a perfect addition to the rest of the gameplay. The ambient music fits perfectly in the urban pizzeria environment. The only light on in the building is the dim one in your office, making you completely surrounded in darkness. Definitely an 8.5. There are two ways that the tension in this game works, one of them being the way the animatronics make it towards your office without you even ever seeing them move, which is similar to Slenderman, aside from Foxy I suppose. And the other is when Freddy arrives at your office during the power outage. Even this has a degree of tension because despite the fact you know you're about to lose, he is on a random timer. The tension holds for a large portion of the game, but like I said, this game is hard and you will be replaying it a lot. 7.2. There aren't many successful point-and-click horror games that I know of at least, but this one definitely created some hype. Being stuck in the office while the enemies make it closer to you with no means of stopping them until they're right next to you is a very interesting mechanic. To beat the game, you have to be very precise and very conservative of your time and movement, leaving you in a huge state of panic throughout this gameplay. Gameplay gets a 9.3. This game is a weird one for visuals. All scenes are rendered in 3D but then implemented using a 2D engine. Despite this, I love the way the cameras are grainy and static to try and obscure the view of the animatronics. It gets a 6.7. This will definitely be a personal one of mine, and I'm sure this opinion differs from player to player, but the design of the characters are absolutely fantastic. Using colours and forms for the animatronics to easily differentiate the characters and threats. They also have their own personalities, so to speak, as they move around in different ways. Just as a side note, Bonnie is my favourite character. Actually, it's Funtime Freddy, but shut up, he isn't in the game.